everybody, to the 23rd edition of the Salt Lunchbox, welcoming you on Zoom and Facebook Live. My name's Dave. I'm the founder of Salt Sport and Life Training. We're a not-for-profit health organisation that typically we present in sporting clubs and organisations, and we pivoted, as Peter says, at the beginning of COVID to bring about the Salt Lunchbox, and we've really enjoyed our 23 sessions. Feel like we've learnt a lot. The idea is to inspire and connect, and at the end to leave our listeners with 3 takeaway points and a call to action, something that we can physically do straight away. We always enjoy having people participate in the chat and Q&A at the bottom of your screen, so feel free to ask questions or make comments, and James will respond, and where possible we'll also bring it to our experts and panel to respond as well. As always, we'd like to thank our sponsors, FC Business Solutions, Eastland and Bendigo Bank. Without their generosity, we would not have been able to present these to you. And so today I'd like to welcome Larice, who we know well, has been bringing us sessions on self-care, and also Craig Abbott. Craig's a friend of mine through a mutual friend, Anthony Phillips, that we had on a few months ago. Craig is the founder of Heavy Haulers and PHIIT Studio. Now, PHIIT's not spelled F-I-T, it's spelled P-H-I-I-T. I'm going to have to ask him about that. He has over 23 years of experience in fitness and athlete development, and is passionate about helping people to improve their health and be the best they can, both physically and mentally. Interesting, that whole link between the physical and the mental. So welcome, Craig. Welcome, Larice. And Craig, tell me, PHIIT, P-H-I-I-T. That's not how you spell fit. What does that stand for?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on, Dave. Really excited to share some valuable information with all the audience out there. But yes, PHIIT is a little bit different. PHIIT is basically an acronym that stands for Progressive High Intense Interval Training. Now, high intense interval training is really a method of exercise that's been quite popular for the last decade or so, and really is kind of known as the holy grail of exercise. However, high intense interval training alone as a method isn't as effective unless you incorporate the principles of exercise, which we're kind of governed by if we want to get results. So the P stands for progressive overload. So progressive high intense interval training is what it stands for.
Fantastic. And you talk about the physically and the mental, and it's good to have Larice. Larice, welcome. You're very much into the connection between the physical and the mental, and you've been talking a bit about that in our self-care session. So welcome, Larice, and how do you see that link between the physical and the mental?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. I'm really excited today about discussion with Craig, because I really believe, as we've talked about in our couple of self-care sessions, as well as bringing in a number of these, the mental health into a lot of our conversations, is, it's not just all about, getting out there and exercising. This is a holistic discussion which Craig is going to, take us through today. And the mental side, for me, over the past 3 years, getting into high intensity training has been probably more paramount than the actual exercise itself. And that's really what motivates me to get out there. So it's bringing it all together. So this is really exciting.
I've actually recently got into low intensity training after probably doing high intensity training. If we didn't call it back in the day, but I used to do a lot of pavement running and fast bowling, and both of those activities were high intensity, I guess, but ruined my knees. And I guess I've sort of got this aversion to the idea of high intensity because I feel like it's kind of high wear and tear. But tell us, Craig, how it actually isn't.
High intensity and high impact are two very different things. And high intensity really is a way to describe how hard you're exerting yourself from a beats per minute, a heart rate perspective, whereas high impact refers more to activities which cause a lot of stress and shock on your joints. So there is quite a big difference between high intense interval training and high impact activity. And high intense interval training has got so many benefits that you know, we could sit here for an entire talk just listening at the benefits. But really, when doing that method of exercise, it is important that you choose activities that are appropriate for you. If you have got degeneration in your discs or your knee joints or any of your joint spaces, stress fractures, then obviously choosing lower impact type activity such as swimming, which is no impact, same with bike riding, rowing, or even going uphill instead of going downhill. These are all either non-impact or low-impact activities, which would be much more friendly on the body. But irrespective of whether your body has got a bit of wear and tear or not, getting the heart rate up and really kind of blowing out your filters and exerting yourself is really important if you want any of the real kind of tangible benefits that come with exercise.
Great. And tell me, how was COVID lockdown for you, for your business, and you know, how did it change the nature of the way people exercised, and what did you see?
Well, look, we've gone from being an exclusive offering of group exercise, where we have some groups up to 40 or so people and running a fair few per week, now to simply being doing one-on-one. Well, it's still group stuff, but using Zoom, where you know, you're not kind of training with anyone else in front of you. And it's, I guess, to adjust it, it's been a little bit difficult initially, but you know, I reckon at least 70% of our members still wanted to train, and we actually all we got used to it, and people actually really enjoy it. Now that restrictions are starting to lift, there are still a lot of people that want to keep doing the Zoom sessions, even though we're back to group stuff. So, you know, there's definitely some pros and cons of it, but I think keeping people connected, keeping people in routine, and maintaining the continuity of exercise, which is so important for any sort of results to occur. You need to make sure that you're consistent with it and that you are maintaining a routine that is sustainable for yourself. So I think that's probably the most important thing for us as an exercise business to put forward an offering that helps maintain continuity for our members of their exercise.
Yeah, and look, I hear you talk about continuity and consistency and routine over and over. So I'll throw it to both of you, and I'd love you to talk about just developing this motivation, because I reckon the average listener who's not into a routine is not into one because it's actually too hard. So how to develop that motivation and maintain that consistency that you're talking about? How do we do it?
Well, I think you got to find out your why. You know, why do you need to exercise? Why do you want to exercise? Generally speaking, people would probably see, or the majority of people would see exercise as a chore. But it's not until you actually start doing, you've got purpose to your training, and you start feeling the tangible benefits. You start feeling clearer in your decision making. You start feeling better about yourself. You start looking better. Your skin feels better and looks better. You feel like your capacity and your ability to get through each and every day is, you know, a lot less stressful. Life is easier when you've got some capacity, when you're fit and healthy. So I guess everyone's got to find out their why. I mean, it's someone just exercising to have a better life, or it's someone exercising for performance, and everything that goes in between. Reasons why people choose to move their bodies in a regular kind of deliberate way. So I think getting motivation is quite difficult, but having a purpose to your exercise definitely helps get started. And once you're in routine, it's quite easy to maintain, provided you've set yourself a standard which is achievable. You know, saying I'm going to start doing 10 sessions a week is going to be quite difficult. But if you say, look, every second day I'm going to exert myself, and I'm going to do it for 20 minutes or 30 minutes, having a plan around what you do and how you do it and how you progress it. And then once you feel better, you actually want to do more, because those endorphins, they're screaming for you to come and do another session. They really are. It makes you feel good. Maurice, what do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree, but I even take it further than that. The why is so important, but I tie it back to, in a lot of my coaching, the why, a lot of your purpose of why you're getting up in the morning, you know. So it's greater than just saying, Dave, that my purpose to exercise. It's my purpose as a human being and who I'm showing up as. So as, I've shared with you and the audience, I've gone through cancer in my past. And so I tied it back to my will to live, my will to being a better person in the world, and wanting to be a better mom and so forth. Now, how was I going to do that? The exercise was part of the how. And I see like Jody has had a RICO, a knee RICO, and so, you start to tie it to, who you want to show up as and that purpose. It's really strong. And I totally agree with Craig. Figure out what your why is. Keep asking yourself what your why is. And that motivates you in those times that you're just not feeling good to exercise. It's not about the exercise. It's about the why of the purpose.
No, that's good. And it's Jody Murphy saying, "G'day to you, Craig," and giving you all the credit for who she is today. I love that whole person, the physical, the mental, the spiritual, the social, can all come out, can't it, as we exercise. We have that time to think and clear our mind. We connect with other people. We feel better about ourselves and our self-esteem. But somewhere along the line, things seem to go wrong. I reckon most of us have had these periods where we've been pretty good. But I know for me, the injuries have been difficult to overcome. And, I can't run anymore because of my knees and my groin and my heel and everything else. and so what do you say to people who come in and their starting point is, this is how much is wrong with me. Now what can I do?
Well, I think with any exercise, you can scale it back and make it so it's a lot more appropriate for the particular person who's doing it. So, if you're stiff and sore and perhaps your range of motion at your joints is restricted or limited, then there needs to be a plan in place on how that's addressed. And I guess some people do have the know-how to self-regulate, self-manage, and to be able to self-modify exercise to suit their restrictions or their ability and capacity. Others don't. And I think that it's important to see a professional, see someone who can scale it back for you. I think, if you're doing, group exercise is quite a popular format for people to exercise in these days. The connectedness, the accountability aspect of it, it's it really is quite beneficial to train in groups. But sometimes in that group setting, it is quite hard for the trainer to be able to modify it on the spot, especially if there's large groups. I think anyone who is exercising in that group environment, really should talk to the trainer beforehand and say, look, I'm a little bit restricted. I've had a reconstruction. I've had a injury. I've got limitations. Talk to them and get those exercises modified, or have a list of do's and don'ts so you can still participate at your level of fitness and at your level of ability, and you can actually progress and go forward at your own kind of pace and at your rate. Exercise can be quite effective and quite potent at improving your ability physically, and all of the kind of different outcomes that go, whether it be fat loss, whether it be muscle gain. But it all depends on how you apply yourself, and we're all individuals. So it's always you versus you. It's always you doing what you can, and then just trying to simply improve on that as your sessions go on. Just push yourself, push against yourself, chase yourself. And I think that's an important thing to say. So having a plan on what you're going to do is really important, Dave. And especially if you've got restrictions, you need to ask a few questions and find out what it is that's going to be on the menu when you rock up to training.
I think that you versus you is a really good point. And a friend of mine, he talks about the fact that he doesn't choose to opt into exercise. He exercises every morning. He occasionally chooses to opt out. So if he's had a really late night, he'll say, I'll give myself a rest today. But he says it's really important, for instance, that he gets out his gear that he needs, whether it's his bike or his betas or whatever it is, the night before, with the expectation that in the morning I do that. I reckon if you leave it to the morning to decide whether you're going to do it or not, most often you won't. But that routine and that morning and night thing too. How do you go, Larissa? Are you a morning or a night person? And how do you get yourself out of bed every morning, even when you don't feel like it?
Yeah, great question. I used to work out in the morning, but now I work out at night. I just found that I wasn't able to work out in the morning. And so when I missed it, it started getting ad hoc. And as we talked about in the self-care sessions, really, really important to have a daily routine. And so, and constantly adjust to what's happening in your life. So the shift was, okay, I'll do it at night. And so I have in my calendar at 5 o'clock every day, that's time set aside for me, and I'm opting in. But I've put it into my schedule. So it's in my head that that's what I've scheduled into. Now, if I feel like getting up in the morning and having a session, great. That's fantastic, but I just can't fit it in right now into the morning, and I like my lie-in, so you know I'm not one of these 4 or 5 a.m. starters. What do you think, Craig?
Yeah, look, I think it's individual. I mean, the research points to various benefits of training in the morning, and there's various benefits of training in the evening. But at the end of the day, it comes down to what works for you. If you're over ambitious and think that, you know what, I'm going to do mornings, I'm going to train at 5 a.m. and then you find that you're missing more sessions than you're attending, well, then it kind of defeats the purpose and it's counterproductive. Yeah. So I think what works for you is probably the most important thing, and we're all different. Look, probably after 23 years of waking up in the 4s pretty much every morning of the week, you know, you get used to it. Do I like it? Not necessarily. Is it hard? Of course it is. I want to go back to bed like everyone else. But, obviously, I don't have that the choice to go back to bed. I've got to get up because there's people waiting to exercise. But you do get used to it, and I found that training in the morning for me is definitely better for me, even though I probably don't rate it as much. But I do look at it this way. You know, it's 7:30 in the morning. I've exercised. I've put 100 people through their paces. I'm sitting down, having coffee, having a good, healthy breakfast, and it's 7:30 in the morning. The day's in front of me. So for me, that's what I love. I live for that. I've gone through periods where I've trained at night and I've enjoyed them as well. But for me, mornings suit me personally, but it's not for everyone. I think you got to choose what works for you. Absolutely.
When I was young, I used to think that running was the ultimate exercise. And I almost felt like it was the only one that really counted, because you could just push yourself so hard and you could see the results. You know, I remember I used to try and extend my run by 5 minutes every run until I was running for hours. And I used to say to my wife, I'm a machine. I can just run forever. And I felt like that until now. I spend the rest of my life with the worst knees you've ever experienced from all the running that I did. Tell me, is running okay, or is it actually fraught with problems for people in the future?
Well, I think your whole story there just suggests that maybe you are overtraining, doing too much, especially with an activity where there is a lot of shock on the body. I mean, the body is obviously designed to take a certain amount of shock, but running on the pavement and doing hours and hours and not having the right recovery, perhaps the right progression, perhaps the right amount of, I know you might have been training 20 times per week, that will take its toll at some point. I think running definitely has massive advantages in terms of an energy expenditure point of view. I mean, you're supporting your body weight and you're having to generate the power each and every step. So yes, there's huge benefits to your frame, to your musculoskeletal system, to your cardiovascular system. But I would say if you really enjoy running, to kind of do 50% of your weekly exercise with running or high impact stuff, and do the other 50% with low impact stuff, just so you can share the load, so you can recover, so you don't overtrain, so you don't strain or place too much pressure on your joints, which once they wear out, they're gone. So, you know, I'd say, you know, for anyone out there who loves their run and they go every day, maybe do it every second or every third day. Maybe once every couple of months, have a complete week off. Just let everything recover and regenerate and start again. But, you know, mix it with roller. Do the high intense interval kind of stuff where you have a set period of work and a set period of rest. You do a number of repeats of them where you really kind of push yourself in each of those intervals. So you're not spending hours and hours on that piece of equipment and then, you know, perhaps getting stale or getting sick of it. Or placing your body under too much stress. Do short, sharp stuff, and then go for a run maybe every second or third day. That's what I'd say. You know, balance it with some non-impact activity.
Yeah, funny, Dave. I can't think of anything worse than what you've just described. But being a past swimmer, that was my go-to. But I think for now, to Craig's point, that finding a diversity in what you do every day is really important for me right now. We were speaking earlier, some days I don't feel like doing cardio, so I might decide, well, especially in this COVID time, that I'm not getting into the gym, but I might say, well, I need to do some weights today, or at least some push-ups and sit-ups, and that diversity is really important for me. I think the monotony is when you start getting into a danger zone of, you go, oh, I won't go for a run today. I don't feel like it. So pick something else, like Craig just said.
Craig, I want to talk to you about food, and I suspect that for many people, losing weight is one of the largest motivations as to why they want to exercise. And so talk to us about the relationship between food and training, and what emphasis we put on what we eat versus how much we exercise. Can we out-exercise a bad diet? Talk to me about that.
No, you can't out-train a poor diet, Dave. And a poor diet doesn't just mean eating junk food. This is probably a really important thing to mention. Yeah, I can see that packet of licorice. That's great. Now, a poor diet. Well, what does constitute the proper nutrition? We're talking about quality of food. We're talking about the quantity of food. We're talking about the timing of food. These are really kind of the three key principles of eating if you want any sort of impact on your body composition. When we talk about body weight, we're really talking about composition, body fat, and how much muscle you have. And most of us probably could do with a little bit less body fat, a little bit more muscle, which will improve our body composition. But the only way to really trim off the fat is to make sure that you're eating just that little bit less than what you're expending each and every day. So some of that energy that goes towards your daily requirements actually comes from excess that you've got stored on your body. And it's not only having the right amount of food, just that little bit less, being in that negative calorie balance, but it's also making sure that the food you have is nourishing you to help not only give you energy for your day, for your exercise, but also to help recover your cells so you can bounce back and actually experience the benefits. So I think having a plan with exercise is extremely important, but also having a plan around your food is equally as important if you're after health, vitality, energy, fat loss, and improvement in muscle or muscle gain. Absolutely important, Dave.
Are you mere mortal, Craig? Like, do you ever decide, I just don't want to exercise, or do you ever eat junk food? Because I've seen you with your T-shirt on, and I'm a bit disappointed you wore the jacket today because you're an impressive unit. But do you ever fall foul of the same temptations and weaknesses that the rest of us do?
Yeah, of course I do. I've got my vices. I love ice cream. I love chocolate, but I just don't have too much of it, and I don't have it every day. And by having a fairly clean Monday to Friday, Monday to Saturday kind of intake, it means that when I do have that little bit of ice cream as a treat, it goes down well, but I actually don't feel like having too much, because you actually get to a point where your body doesn't want it. Your taste buds might want it. The thought of it might be appealing, but you have it, and it just doesn't sit as well as perhaps what it did when you were regularly eating junk. So, yeah, look, I believe in, it comes down to balance. What's sustainable for you? If you're an athlete, if you're, let's say, a bodybuilder and you're trying to get lean, well, there's maybe not a lot of room for having those kind of cheat meals or deviating from the plan. But if you're looking to just enjoy your life, have good balance, and you're comfortable with your body composition, then why not? Absolutely. Having one or two sittings per week where you go off the rails a little bit is really not going to be that detrimental in terms of your overall energy consumption. So I think absolutely go for it, but just plan it, or have it sparingly. Don't, there's different degrees of crime, Dave. You could have one square of chocolate, or you could have the whole block, right? If you really got those cravings, well, maybe make sure that you've put your little little pointers in place. Might be cleaning your teeth straight after your dinner, so you don't feel like having something sweet. It might be having your dinner a little bit later, so then you're going to bed maybe a couple of hours after that. You don't feel like eating. If you've got a few tips on how to kind of avoid having those cravings, put them in practice. But if you absolutely have something that you're hanging for, maybe a bit of dark chocolate instead of milk chocolate, and a little bit instead of a lot. There's different degrees of crime, and I think that you got to try and manage or manage those cravings the best you can.
I reckon you just referring to it as crime is probably a fairly good technique. I've never thought of it as a crime, but maybe now I will. I've got a confession. We live a walking distance to a McDonald's, and they keep advertising to my phone 2 Big Macs for $6. So, because I love a bargain.
Dave, I'd just further that. I fooled myself into thinking that it was that I could get away with a lot of that stuff, but I took 20 kilos off, and that was cutting out a lot of the stuff that Craig's talking about. And now when I have any of that stuff, my body tells me I don't like it. Boy, the ice cream goes down well. Oof, love it. But I can really tell that the sugar hit, it has a lot more of an impact on me than I thought now that I've taken it out of my diet for the most part. And I must say, I have fallen in love with kale, and never would. I know it, but I cannot get through a week without kale now, Dave. I'm going to get you onto this.
Got to get into kale. I'm going to share my screen, and because I want to bring it home, and there's some really good points here. So being active is good, but having purpose to your exercise is far more effective when it comes to improving your health and exercise. I love that point. You've got to have your purpose as to why, you said, Craig, you're doing this. Is it so I have a longer life? I mean, Larice, you talked about your cancer and who you wanted to be as a person, how you wanted to represent yourself. So, a much bigger why. One guaranteed way to not achieve the result you're after is by missing sessions. Form healthy habits, prioritise and make exercise part of your weekly routine. I love, Larice, the fact that you always share that you put it in your diary as an appointment. And we know that habits, Craig, take a fair while to form, but once they're there, you find it very hard not to exercise, or you find it very hard to eat a whole heap of junk food. And you can't out-train a poor diet. I've just got to move my licorice out of the way. The health benefits only come when you marry the right regular exercise with a balanced and nutritious meal plan. So quality of food, quantity, how much is on your plate, and timing of when you eat are all factors to address in order to create a balanced diet. I'm not sure, Craig, we've only got a couple of minutes left, but just in a couple of sentences, talk to me about the timing of when you eat and the importance of that.
Yeah, timing is extremely important. If you're awake, let's say for 12 hours of the day, it is important that you try where possible to spread your caloric intake over those waking hours. And there are, I don't want to get, there are quite a few people who fast, and there's quite a few people who really believe in that firmly. But really, and I'm not saying that that it's bad or anything like that, and people have got great benefits, but really in terms of a sustainable approach and delivery, we want to have breakfast. We want to make sure that we get our metabolism going. There is something called the thermic effect of food. And thermic effect of food means that our metabolism is increased when we eat. When we eat and when we digest, it produces heat, and that burns more calories. So it is really important to have some food as soon as you wake up, get your metabolism going, and then every 2 to 3 hours, try and have something, have a planned meal, so you stay ahead of your hunger. When we're hungry, we often make poor decisions on what we go and eat. So if we make sure that we've got our food, we've got our quota of food, and our food is prepared and ready for us, then chances are we're not going to go off the rails. We're going to get a nice delivery of food. So timing is important when it comes to, especially for fat loss and recovery. Timing is absolutely important.
I could listen all day. I'm going to take that one away. Get ahead of your hunger. Eat before you're actually even hungry. That's just a good takeaway from me. One call to action. Don't wait. Start now. Learn about your body and learn how to best use it to optimize your health and fitness, irrespective of your current age and ability. I keep giving Craig all these excuses about my broken body. and he never accepts them, and good on him. Call to action. And there's the PHIIT Studio logo. To experience a structured exercise program that is self-paced, self-progressed, and that can easily be scaled, to make it more or less challenging, book in for a casual session of Bodyweight Blaster at www.phitstudio.com.au and talk to Craig, because he is the best in the business.
Thanks, Dave.
No worries. And on Wednesday, we've got Belinda Smith. Now, she is the author of a range of books on children and health. And she's the author of a book called The Root Cause. And you can see her there talking to kids with bunches of kale and other things. And she's been on Sunrise and the ABC. And you know, she is an expert in getting our kids, when they're young, to start craving for good, healthy foods. I was talking to her this morning about Gatorade. She's going to pay out a little bit on Gatorade, because when she holds up a bottle of it, the kids all get really excited and want it, and they've seen the athletes drinking it. So that's a good one coming up on Wednesday. They are our sponsors, Bendigo Bank, Eastland and FC. We're very grateful to them all. If you miss a session, go to Facebook, go to our website, go to YouTube, and you can catch up on them. Club Reconnect is again rolling out this week into a number of clubs. And so if your club's not sure how do we come back and overcome the issues that we're going through, get in contact with us. That's the number for Lifeline, as we always publish in case you're struggling, 24-hour support. I want to thank you, Craig. I want to thank you, Larice. Half an hour zoomed through, and we're 2 minutes over, which we don't normally do, but I could have spoken to you all day, Craig. So keep up the great work. I know I've got to join you at some stage and haul some of those tyres around with you. Thanks, everybody. Remember, we come out of this stronger, better, richer in the things that really matter. Thanks, everybody. Bye for now.